Hey, and welcome back to my podcast, Marissa. Today we're diving back into the Game of Thrones. We're doing season one, episodes 4 and 5, and that's going to be book one of the series, A Song of Ice and Fire. So we're starting out with Bran Stark. He wakes up with no memory about what happened before his fall, and he even insists that he didn't fall. All he knows is that he's having very confusing dreams about a three-eyed crow and very vague dreams about Jaime and Cersei Lannister. He keeps telling everybody he didn't fall because he's just a good climber, so he doesn't understand what happened to him. Then he gets a visit from Tyrion Lannister, who has just come from the wall and seeing Jon. And Jon had asked Tyrion to give Bran some advice or help him somehow. Tyrion gives Bran a custom design for a saddle that Bran can wear even though he's paralyzed, so he can ride his horse. But when Tyrion shows up, all of the direwolves pretty much attack him because they get the vibe from Robb that Tyrion is an unwelcome guest. Robb thinks that Tyrion is dangerous and he suspects him of having a hand in Bran's fall. But Bran sees that Tyrion has a gift for him, so he calls off Summer, and then Robb follows him by calling off Grey Wind, and then Rickon follows him by calling off Shaggy Dog. They kind of still growl and surround Tyrion, just protecting the boys from him, but they back off a little bit thanks to Bran. After Tyrion gives Bran the design for his new custom saddle, Tyrion leaves as fast as he can to escape the danger of the direwolves. So let's skip over to Daenerys. Viserys is worthless, and Khal Drogo offers Viserys a ride in the cart while everybody else walks. And Viserys thinks that this is a generous apology for Daenerys' behavior towards him, but it's actually a further insult because now he's even worth less than people that are walking. He was the walker, but now he's king of the cart, which is like basically you're a lame person. Like you can't even walk. Like that's how worthless you are in the eyes of the party of the Dothraki. At this point, he's a cripple and worth even less than a walker. In the book, Daenerys had mystical, like magical dreams about her eggs. She saw a red light that looked like a finger touching her eggs, and she thought it was kind of suspicious, but then it quickly vanished. So I don't really know what she was supposed to understand from that because, again, she's 14. But I think that this is the reason why the dragons came to life later on. Heading over to King's Landing, we see Sansa with her best friend Jane Poole. Jane Poole was able to come along with Sansa to King's Landing because Jane's father is in the guard for Ned Stark. So Jane followed Sansa to King's Landing and they get to hang out like all the time. We don't see Jane very much in the show because she quickly fades from view. In the book too, but in this part, Jane represents the softer, more feminine and girly side of Sansa. In the book, Sansa's a lot more cold and cruel. She doesn't scream when the guy dies in the tournament. She's not afraid of things quite yet. Like she tries to put on a brave face, except when it comes to Joffrey. When it comes to Joffrey, she is afraid that he might hate her because of what happened with Nymeria, who is Arya's direwolf. After this brutal tournament, Joffrey offers Sansa an escort back to her room since it's dark, and he doesn't want her to be frightened. She thinks that Joffrey's offering himself to be her escort, but he offers the Hound instead. At this point, the Hound tells Sansa his backstory about how he got burned by his brother as a kid. But in the show, Littlefinger tells her this story as a political power play, telling her that she can't tell anybody or else he'll have her killed or the Hound will kill her. It's just not good. But in the book, the Hound tells her the story himself. I think he kind of tells her this story because he wants her to fear and respect him, but she just finds him disgusting. She is a little frightened, but she doesn't let it show. Okay, so as far as episode 4 goes, those are the only differences from the book. So I'm going to let you guys watch the episode and just leave it as is. There aren't any other changes. Everything else is true to the book. So let's go over to episode 5. So Ned comes in to King Robert preparing for his tournament, and King Robert confides in Ned that Joffrey's a monster, and he doesn't know how he could have produced such a terrible child. Like, he really hates Joffrey a lot. Ned doesn't say anything yet because he doesn't think it's the time, and also there are lots of people helping the king with his armor, so there are too many listening ears. The tournament continues according to the book, but the king does not participate, even though Cersei secretly wanted him to. She had forbidden him in public, knowing that his pride would make him want to fight even more. But then something happened where he just decided not to do it. After the tournament, Sansa and Arya sit together at dinner, And they actually share memories and stories about their day and how excited they are about their lives, even though they're so vastly different within King's Landing. Sansa tells Arya about the dreamy boys at the tournament and how they all had flowers and they fought so valiantly. And then Arya tells Sansa about her bruises from dancing class and how she really enjoys practicing with her dance teacher. So over to Catelyn and Tyrion. I know I didn't mention this earlier, but in the meantime, Catelyn captured Tyrion at an inn on his way down to King's Landing and on her way up from King's Landing. So she has captured Tyrion and she's taking him up to the Eyrie where her sister lives so that she can have a judgment for him and have him punished. When she gets to the Eyrie, she's greeted by her uncle Brynden, who we don't see in the show at this point. He comes in later on, but at this point, it was pretty important for him to be there. When she sees Brynden, they have a reunion, and then Brynden tells Kat about all the things that her sister Lysa is doing in the Eyrie and how she's gone mad, basically, and how she's treating everybody and the damage she's done in the land. We also get a backstory on Uncle Brynden and why he was the blackfish of the family, much like we would call somebody a misfit, like a black sheep nowadays. He was the black fish because fish is the sigil of House Tully. So he didn't really fit in, he didn't really follow the rules that his brothers did, and so he was cast out and called the black fish. So Brynden guides Kat over to her room in the Eyrie, but as soon as she gets there, Kat receives news that Lysa really needs to see her immediately, even though she's just been traveling for days and she's exhausted. Lysa pretends to be happy when Kat comes into her room, but as soon as everybody else leaves, Lysa's fury is unmatched. She's angry with Kat for bringing Tyrion to her home. Lysa also boasts about Jon Arryn's last words to her, which were, "The seed is strong," and she thought that Jon was talking about her son Robert, but he was really talking about King Robert. He said Robert's seed is strong because when King Robert has a child, that child looks just like him. He has dark hair, dark features, and you know that he's a Baratheon. So Jon Arryn was discovering that King Robert's children with Cersei were not true Baratheons. But Lysa had misinterpreted this phrase, "the seed is strong," as praise for her own son, Robert, who is like the most sickly child you've ever heard of. I forgot to mention that on the way up to Lysa, Kat is escorted by a young lady who looks like a Baratheon, and we find out later through implications that this is another of King Robert's baseborn children. So next we go back to King's Landing, and Arya is chasing a cat, and then she ends up eavesdropping on Illyrio and Varys. Remember that Illyrio is the one that sold Daenerys to Khal Drogo, and Varys is the master of whisperers in King's Landing. So Arya hears them discussing the attempt on Bran's life, more plans to kill Ned Stark, Dany's pregnancy, and why Khal Drogo won't go to war until his child is born, and also of Loras Tyrell plotting to have his sister become the next queen. Arya runs to warn Ned, but he doesn't believe her, and he's angry that she's wandering around the castle unescorted and unsupervised. Unfortunately, he dismisses her completely. Then Varys goes to Ned and he warns him about Cersei's plans to get King Robert killed. He also confirmed that Cersei arranged the murder of Sir Hugh. When the small council receives the news that Daenerys is pregnant, King Robert decides that it's time to have her murdered, and Ned did not like this. He actually resigned because now King Robert is plotting to have a child killed. Not only a child, but a child that is with child. Like, Dany is 14 and she's pregnant. Ned refuses to conspire to kill her and hands over his pin for Hand of the King. He goes back to his room and prepares to leave King's Landing. However, he's intercepted by Littlefinger, who takes him to a brothel purely for the purposes of gathering more information. Ned meets another one of King Robert's baseborn children there. Littlefinger hints that Cersei has had other baseborn children killed or sold into slavery or otherwise. Ned doesn't understand why Jon Arryn cared so much about these baseborn children, but Littlefinger suggests that the Lannisters might not want their existence to be public knowledge. But it's mostly because they wanted to avoid rumors of the Baratheon children not actually belonging to the king. When Ned and Littlefinger leave the brothel, Ned is faced with Jaime and his men. In this show, there's a one-on-one battle between Jaime and Ned, but in the book, Jaime never fights him. When Ned tells Jaime that Tyrion was taken by his wife Cat on Ned's demands, Jaime has Ned's men killed right then and there, and then Jaime runs away. Ned is thrown from his horse from all the commotion from the other men, and his horse falls on him and breaks his leg. So there's no battle where Jaime's fighting Ned in the book. Like, this was just done for the show. And that brings us to the end of episode 5. It's really weird to me that Jaime didn't fight Ned in the book, but they made him fight him in the show. Like, does it make him seem more like a warrior and like a fighter in the show if he's actually fighting him? Because in the book, it kind of looks cowardly for him to just run away. So the question is, does Jaime fleeing make him look more ruthless and strategic, or do you prefer the sword fight that we got in the show? Other than that, everything else in episode 5 is true to the book. Because there's not that much of a difference from the show to the book in these episodes, this episode is a little bit shorter, but I promise there are more differences coming, so you have to stay tuned. So thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.